الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is session 13 of our study on the field of Nahw. We have finished discussing our first Murakkab Naqis, which is Murakkab Tawsifi. Now we are going to go on to the second Murakkab Naqis, which is Murakkab Idafi. So just like Murakkab Tawsifi, Murakkab Idafi is also counted as a Murakkab Naqis, meaning it's an incomplete compound. Now, what is this Murakkab? This type of compound is referred to as the possessive phrase. It is when both parts of this compound are nouns and the first noun is related to the second noun. The relationship between the two nouns is known as al-idafa. The first part of the Murakkab Idafi is called Mudaf, possessed, and the second part is called Mudafun ilayh, possessor. The Mudaf, possessed, will not have the definite article alif lam. It also will not have tanween. The Mudafun ilayh is always in halatul jar, the genitive case. The Mudaf will be translated first, thereafter of is to be mentioned, then the Mudafun ilayh will be translated. When translating this type of compound, between the mudaf and mudafun ilayh, of will be mentioned. Also, the mudaf will have the in the meaning because it is now definite. It is definite due to it being related to a type of definite noun. Category 7 of the types of definite nouns. So these are some discussions related to the Murakabi Idwafi. Let's go through them one by one. This type of compound is referred to as the possessive phrase. Why it's called this is going to become very clear very soon. It is when both parts of this compound are nouns and the first noun is related to the second noun. So there's a relationship between the first component and the second component. Okay. The relationship between the two nouns is known as al-idafa. This relationship between the first noun and the second noun is known as al-idafa. The first part of the Murakkabi Idafi, you can also call this Mudaf Mudaf ilayh. So you can call it Murakkabi Idafi, you can call it Mudaf Mudaf ilayh. It's called Mudaf. So the first part, the first component is called Mudaf, which means possessed, and the second part is called Mudafun ilayh, which means possessor. So these are the two parts that make a Murakkabi Idafi. Okay, the first one is the mudaf, which means possessed, and the second one is mudafun ilayh, which means possessor. Now you can see why it's called the possessive phrase. It's because the first part, which is the first component, the mudaf, it's the possession of the mudafun ilayh, which is the possessor. Hence why it's called the possessive phrase. Okay. Now we're going to mention some rules of Murakkabi Idafi starting with the Mudaf. So the Mudaf over here has two rules. The Mudaf, which is the possessed, the first component, will not have the definite article alif lam. So you will not see a Mudaf that has alif lam. It also will not have tanween. So the Mudaf has two rules. It won't have alif lam, meaning it won't have the definite article alif lam, and nor will it have tanween. That's regarding the mudaf. When it comes to the mudafun ilay, the second component, which is the possessor, the mudafun ilay, is always in halatul jar, the state of jar, which is formerly known as the genitive case. So it's always in the state of jar. Okay, so these are rules related to the murakkab idwafi. So this is how you translate a murakkab idwafi to English. The mudaf will be translated first. Thereafter, of is to be mentioned, meaning between the mudaf and the mudaf ilayh, of is to be mentioned. Then the mudaf ilay will be translated. Okay, so first you translate the mudaf, which is the first component, and then you have of in between the mudaf and mudafun ilay, and then you translate the mudafun ilay. Okay. When translating this type of compound between the mudaf and mudafun ilay, of will be mentioned. Also, the mudaf will have the in the meaning because it is now definite. It is definite due to it being related to a type of definite noun. Category 7 of the types of definite nouns. Example, we have three examples over here of Murakkabi Idafi. The first example is Babul Bayti. The first example is Babul Bayti. The second example is Qalamu Rajuli. And the third example is Kitabu Zaydin. So we have Babul Bayti, Qalamu Rajuli, Kitabu Zaydin. So over here, for example, Babul Bayti. If you look at Babul Bayti, we have the two components of this Murakkabi Idafi. We have the Mudaf, in this case is Bab, and we have the Mudafun ilay, in this case Al Bayt. In this second example, we have Qalamu Rajuli. Qalam is the Mudaf, Al Rajuli is the Mudafun ilay. Kitabu Zaydin, over here, Kitab is the Mudaf, Zaydin is the Mudafun ilay. You can call it Mudafun ilay, you can call it Mudaf ilay. Both are fine. Now I mentioned this explicitly, translate this way so you don't get mixed up with the Murakkab Tawsifi. You don't translate the Murakkab Idafi backwards when you're translating to English like you would for the Murakkab Tawsifi. No. When it comes to the Murakkab Tawsifi, yes, you translate backwards, you translate this way, as we mentioned. But when it comes to the Murakkab Idafi, you do not translate backwards, you translate the right way. As in you translate the Mudaf and then you have of, and then you translate the Mudaf ilay. So over here in the bottom, we've mentioned that you translate this way, and I've illustrated with a diagram over here how the construction is made. How do you make a Murakkabi Idafi Mudaf Mudaf ilay construction? One will represent the Mudaf and the other will represent the Mudafun ilay or the Mudaf ilay. So over here we have Kitabun, a book. Right? Kitabun alone means a book. It's nakira, right? It's indefinite. Zaydun alone means Zayd. When you put this together, it will be Kitabu Zaydin as a Murakkab Idafi, which will mean the book of Zayd. Now the question is, why is it the book when alone Kitabun is a book, meaning it's Nakira? Why is it now the book? This is because of a discussion that we mentioned in the beginning sessions. We said that there are 7 types of ma'rifas, correct? We said that there's 7 types of ma'rifas. And this last one, I said that we're going to leave for later because you're not going to understand it right now. Now is the time to discuss this because it's related to this discussion. So this type of ma'rifa is al-mudafu ila ma'rifa, a noun related to any of the above. So you have a nakira noun and you have it related to any of the above types of ma'rifas and it becomes ma'rifa itself. Kitabu Zaydin, the book of Zayd. So now that Kitab is being associated with Zayd, there's a relationship between Kitab and Zayd, which is ma'rifa. Then Kitab also becomes ma'rifa. Hence why you translate it as the book of Zayd, because it's now ma'rifa. When translating this type of compound between the mudaf and mudaf ilay, of will be mentioned. Also, the mudaf will have the in the meaning because it's now definite. It is definite due to it being related to a type of definite noun. Category 7 of the types of definite nouns, right? That we've just mentioned now. So we have 3 examples over here. Babul Bayti. Bab alone means ado, and al Baytu alone means the house. Put it together, it becomes Babul Bayti, the door of the house. Qalamu Rajuli. Qalamun alone means a pen. Al Rajulu alone means the man. Put it together, as a murakkab idafi, it becomes qalamu rajuli, the pen of the man. Kitabu Zaydin, kitabun alone means a book, Zaydun alone means Zayd. Put it together as a murakkab idafi, it becomes kitabu Zaydin, the book of Zayd. So like we've mentioned, first you translate the mudaf, and then you put of in between the two components, the mudaf and mudaf ilay, and then you translate the mudaf ilay. So babul bayti, the door of the house. Qalamu rajuli, the pen of the man. The pen of the man. Kitabu Zaydin, the book of. No, you can't see this book. You get the point. Zayd, the book of Zayd. Right. Now we mentioned some rules related to the Murakkab Idafi. So we said that when it comes to the Mudaf cannot have the Alif Lam, and nor can it have Tanween. So if you look at all of these examples, the Mudaf does not have Alif Lam, meaning it doesn't have the definite article in Bab, in Qalam, in Kitab, and nor do any of these have Tanween. So those two rules are ticked off for the Mudaf. And when it comes to the Mudaf ilay or the Mudafun ilay, the Mudaf ilay needs to be in the state of jar. It needs to be in halatul jar, the genitive case. In terms of i'rab, it needs to be in halatul jar. And I'm going to say right now, I'm going to tell you right now that all of these examples, the mudaf ilay is in halatul jar. Al-bayti is in halatul jar. Al-rajuli is in halatul jar. Zaydin, it's in halatul jar. If you look at all of the mudaf ilays over here, the reflection of halatul jar is with kasra. Does that mean every single time there's a mudaf ilay, the reflection would be with a kasra? The answer is no. It just so happens to be the case for all of these examples that the reflection of the halatul jar is with a kasra, but it does not have to be the case. So don't get it twisted. Just because all of these examples, it's the same, that the mudaf ilay, the last letter, uh, al-bayti, the ta, al-rajuli, the lam, and zaydin, the dal, they all have kasra. That doesn't have to be the case. Hence why I've made this note over here that the mudafun ilay or the mudaf ilay is always in halatul jar. That's agreed upon. Okay, that's agreed upon. The genitive case. However, just because the reflection of the i'rab of the above examples is with a apparent kasra for the last letter, it doesn't mean that the reflection of halatul jar is always with a apparent kasra. It doesn't have to be the case. Okay, an example of this would be shahru ramadana. We have this example, shahru ramadana. So if we were to split this up, shahrun means a month and ramadanu means Ramadan. You put this together as a murakkab idafi, it becomes shahru ramadana, the month of Ramadan. Because remember we said that you translate this way. You don't translate backwards like the murakkab tawsifi. You translate this way. Yeah? And you translate shahru first and then ramadana. So the month, and then you put of in between, the month of Ramadan. Now, if you look at the halatul jar of the mudaf ilay, the reflection is with a fatha. It's not with a kasra. So it's not always the case that the reflection of the halatul jar of the mudaf ilay is with a kasra. In this example, as you can see, it's with a apparent fatha. Shahru Ramadan.